This video is sponsored by The Ridge. Get 10% off your order and free worldwide shipping by going to ridge.com/nameexplain and by using the code NAMEXPLAIN. So, I was hanging out with Soliloquy a few years back at VidCon in Amsterdam, and as we were walking around the convention we bumped into CGP Grey and Brady Harron. Now, that was rather annoying, wasn't it? And it was no way annoying due to the people I mentioned in it. They're all really friendly, awesome people, and in all honesty, I didn't properly hang out with Gray and Brady. We just bumped into them while I gawked in awe. But rather, I was being annoying in that situation, due to all the people I was mentioning in it. This is something that is known as name dropping. Name dropping, as defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, is the act of talking about famous people that you have met, often pretending that you know them better than you really do, in order to appear more important and special. And this perfectly fits my personal example just then. As I said, I was just pretending to know Graham Brady way more than I actually do. However, just because you mention the name of someone doesn't always mean you are name dropping. Psychologists from the University of Zurich actually conducted an experiment on the effects of name dropping. One of the first things they needed to do was define the construct of name dropping. They wrote, "We understand name dropping in our study as an unprompted association with another individual or group." And it seems that the difference between their definition and Cambridge's is that these psychologists put emphasis on the unprompted aspects of name dropping, which personally I somewhat agree with. We will definitely be coming back to this experiment later on in the video to see what these guys discovered in their name dropping experiment. So, how did name dropping even become a thing? Well, I don't know. I looked into the history of name dropping in hopes that I could find out some more info about it and maybe even the first recorded example of someone dropping a name, but I couldn't find any. The most I could find is that the term name dropping seems to have come into existence in English sometime between 1945 and 1950, though I imagine name dropping has been occurring way before this. It seems to be such a natural part of how we humans interact with one another. I wouldn't be surprised if the senators of ancient Rome would name drop the consuls of the time. I really don't have time to delve into history books and writings of the past to find examples of name dropping, but if anyone can think of any, please let me know down below. I imagine Cicero would be the kind to mention Julius Caesar once or twice. So why exactly do people like name dropping? What do name droppers get out of it, and what impression do they hope to make on the recipient of their name dropping? And also, it's more than just people's names that can be dropped. Things like company names, when talking about companies you have worked with, can be dropped too. Brand names can be dropped too. People might like to specify what brand of clothing they are wearing. And most interestingly, you could drop a city's name. I did this earlier when I mentioned that I was in Amsterdam specifically. All the things I just mentioned, the names of certain people, companies, brands, and places, can all come with certain social value and image. This is especially true of cities, I personally feel. Saying you were hanging out in Amsterdam sounds a fair bit cooler than saying you were hanging out in Blackpool. And no offense to those watching from Blackpool, apologies for being the butt of my joke, I'm sure you're a lovely city. But this is the key thing here, social hierarchy. It seems that name dropping is heavily related to this aspect of life, and seems to be especially discussed in the horrendous world of networking. Seriously, networking is the worst. Social hierarchies are odd things. It could be argued that they're human-made constructs, there to keep certain people in certain positions in their respective groups. But we even see social hierarchies in the natural world. Many animals form groups that revolve around social hierarchies. Bees are a great example of this with their structure of queens, workers, and drones. Primates too have very interesting social structures. Groups of chimpanzees are led by an alpha male, who will keep control by forming alliances with those chimps he wants to keep under his control, patrolling territories and breaking up fights. Below him will be other males who may be happy to be under the alpha's rule, or some may even want to overthrow the alpha. There will also be an alpha female too, and I even read that the offspring of the alpha females will go on to have a high place in social structure once they are older. Though as interesting as bee and chimp social structures are, I don't think they partake in the act of name dropping. Human social structures are much more varied. There isn't just one social structure we all follow, but rather we have many social structures for the different aspects of our life. Families have social structures, usually with a parent at the top and children below. Though it could be seen that as parents and children get older, that dynamic changes when the child has a family of their own. Groups of friends even have a social structure. I'm sure in your group of friends there is one who has more sway over what you guys get up to on your days out than other friends. Even in schools we have the popular kids and the ones who sit at the back of the class. These social structures might seem odd and unpleasant, but it seems to be a somewhat ingrained part of life. It's very hard to shake them off. One of the most interesting social hierarchies we have created are those online. online, where we can physically see them in the forms of followers, likes, and subscribers. It seems the more people who follow you online, the higher up you are in the online social structure. Yet, the place social hierarchies are most common in humans, it would seem to be here in the workplace. At a basic level, we have the boss who is on top with their employees below them. However, it can be way more intricate than that. People can use their social standing in workplaces to get things from other people like promotions or handing off tasks to other people, and it's especially present in a job role that requires meeting many new people, like the dreaded networking meetings as I just mentioned. It's these sorts of scenarios when name dropping is most present, as name dropping seems to be a thing we do most often with people we're getting to know for the first time, and trying to get them on board with, well, the concept of ourselves. When meeting with new people, the social hierarchy is more or less undecided. In this kind of scenario, people do things to try and raise themselves in the burgeoning social hierarchy, and one of these things people might do is name drop by referencing famous people they know / have met, renowned companies they have worked with, and interesting places they've visited. It can elevate them to seem more interesting and an influential figure, in turn raising yourself in the social hierarchy, though this is a very narcissistic reason to name drop. However, not all who name drop are narcissists. There are somewhat sadder reasons too. Some may name drop because they are insecure in themselves. They feel that their own life is dull and not interesting to talk about. So when meeting a new person, instead of talking about who they are as a person, will instead just name drop other people who they feel are more interesting than them. Yet these aren't the only reasons as to why people name drop. There are other reasons as to why we name drop that aren't as intertwined with the world of social hierarchy. Like when we name drop people we know in our personal lives. This can be done when we are meeting someone we don't know for the first time, but know that they know someone you know. So by name dropping the mutual person, it can allow your relationship with the new person to expand. We can also name drop in arguments with others. In fact, this kind of name dropping has a name unto itself: appeal to authority. This is the act of insisting a claim is true because an authority in the issue at hand said it is true, even if you have no other supporting evidence. Say if you and a friend were arguing about dinosaurs. You thought T-Rex was the coolest dinosaur, but your friend thought Velociraptor was the coolest dinosaur. You could name drop Barnum Brown, the paleontologist who first documented T-Rex, and say that he thought T-Rex was the coolest dinosaur to defend yourself of the argument. It's definitely not the best way to win an argument, but it's a form of name dropping nonetheless. And perhaps the most interesting way I read about how we use name dropping is in works of fiction, where names of famous people of a specific time are mentioned to help the audience understand when and where the book is set. So if you were reading a book and the main character was described to be at a party of Marilyn Monroe and Humphrey Bogart, you could probably presume it was set in Hollywood during the 40s and 50s. These seem to be the key reasons as to why people partake in name dropping. So when these people do it, how does it work out for them? And perhaps more importantly, has the name drop worked in the way the name drop has hoped on the person on the receiving end? Well, on the whole, it seems that it doesn't. When it comes to stuff like this, I like to try and be fair, but I couldn't dig up much about name dropping working. I mean, I'm sure there are people who will be impressed about how close friends you are with Stan Lee, but in fact you just paid to get a photo of him at a convention that one time. But on the whole, it seems people see right through your name dropping ploy. Remember that name dropping experiment I mentioned earlier? Well, in their experiment, they asked students to partake in a study on sports behavior. Of course, it wasn't really about sports behavior, but rather the effects of name dropping. All students would email their sports behavior partner in this experiment. While they all thought it was a different person they were emailing, they all got an email from the same fake person, Michael. In some of the students' emails, Michael would name drop Roger Federer and say how they had been friends forever, while in some emails Michael did not. After this, the students were asked how they felt about Michael, and those who received a name drop email from him felt he was significantly less likable than those who didn't get the name drop email. Aside from this study, there are countless articles about name dropping simply doesn't work. One article discusses how name dropping basically always backfires, while one says it's one of the worst networking mistakes you can make. LinkedIn themselves even have a whole article about the no-nos of name dropping. All these articles are really interesting, so I'd recommend checking them all out. They'll all be linked down below, but they all have similar overtones. Those who name drop come off as being vain, self-interested, having no faith in themselves, and in worst case scenarios caught out as liars, name dropping for the sake of it. There's even a WikiHow guide on how to respond to a name dropper. Those guys seriously have a guide for everything. Though despite all this, I really don't think name dropping is always a bad thing. Like I said, there's a variety of ways that people can name drop, and while a lot of the time people name drop to climb their way up the social ladder, it seems others use it to help connect with people in a better way, as we mentioned with dropping the name of mutual friends. Though honestly, to me, people who name drop all the time kind of remind me of those little fish that swim below great white sharks. Now, a name I'm more happy to drop is that of The Ridge, who very kindly sponsored today's video. Now, I'm guessing you own a wallet. It's most likely a big old thing full of junk that you can't even remember why you had it in there in the first place. Well, I was once like this too. However, The Ridge saved me from these dark days. The Ridge make really awesome everyday products at a quality you really don't see every day, with their signature product being the Ridge wallet. This is a wallet unlike any I've seen before. It has a sleek, metallic, minimalist design, and while it may look small, it can carry all the cards I need on me and even cash thanks to the money clip on the back, without all the excess junk I used to carry around. The one The Ridge were kind enough to give me is made of titanium, but they come in other materials too, like aluminium and carbon fiber, as well as over a dozen different designs and colours. It's not only wallets they sell, however. The Ridge have all kinds of useful everyday products like mobile phone cases, power banks and bags. The Ridge even sent me one of their commuter backpacks, and I've used it pretty much every day since, carrying everything I need with plenty of room to spare. So whatever it is you have your eye on, visit ridge.com/nameexplain and use the promo code nameexplain to get 10% off, which will all be linked down below. So why don't you find your next favourite wallet right now by visiting ridge.com/nameexplain and by using the promo code nameexplain. Thank you once again to The Ridge for sponsoring this video. Thank you to all my patrons who support NameExplain on a monthly basis. NameExplain depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just the small amount of $2 a month helps in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive NameExplain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you.